My name is Bill Edwards, and my wife and I, Shirley, own and operate SB Farms, and the majority of the operation is raising bison as a commercial operation. We have a herd of about 80 animals at the high point of the year, and the end product is meat. We obviously need a lot of grazing area for this herd, and we do a management-intensive rotational grazing plan. What that amounts to is a close observation of how much grass is in what pasture and moving the animals to utilize that grass growth at the optimum time. Because they're grass-fed, primarily grass-fed, we try to have forage available for them for at least 10 months out of the year. Grasses are divided into cool season or warm season categories. We use both categories. The warm season is eastern gamma grass. It's a very growthy grass that only likes warm weather, and it grows like crazy. It'll grow up to 2 inches a day. The other grasses that we use is a end-of-fight friendly fescue called Max Q, and it makes up about 2/3 of our forage base. Well, for any grazing animal, if you leave it in the same pasture all the time, eventually you're not going to have any grass. It's going to be bare ground. You have to let the grass regrow after you've cut it, just like your lawn. So we have a management-intensive rotational grazing plan. We also have a prescribed grazing plan that was written by NRCS, and both of those incorporate the rotational grazing. So we keep extensive records on what pastures you use and what time period, what the grass height was when the animals were moved in, how long they were in there, how many animals were in there at the time, when we moved them out, did we apply any fertilizer or anything of that nature. Everything is recorded in our databases. So by doing the rotational grazing, you can graze more animals per acre than you could be if you just put them in a pasture and left them in there. It allows for a lot more forage growth. So we use that extensively. It's easy to cull them, but it's not easy to replace them. You can't just go to a sale barn next Saturday or 2 months down the road and buy replacements. It just doesn't work that way in the bison industry. So we try to keep what we have on hand and gradually build the herd. As a youngster, my family had 7 brothers and sisters, so that's 8 of us. We provided all of the stoop labor for vegetable farms. That's how I grew up on the several, actually, sharecrop farms. And my family never owned any farmland. After I got out of high school, I didn't want anything to do with farm. I'd had it up to here. And I wanted to get away from it. But I still worked for a local farmer here during school because I had to pay for my own clothes. If I wanted a car, I had to buy it. I had to buy the gasoline. If I didn't work, I didn't have. I stayed away from farming for 4 or 5, 6 years after I got out of school, and I started working for a telephone company. That was my 38-year career with them. But something kept saying, farming isn't so bad. And the more time went on, the more I wanted to get back into it. So we eventually bought one of the parcels here where we are today. As the years went by, we bought an adjacent parcel and a third parcel, and we're up to 104 acres. So we started from scratch, and we built it up gradually over the years. I was working every day after work, every weekend, every holiday to keep the regular farm work going. And at the end of the year, there wasn't that much left to show for all my efforts. So one day I was reading a farm magazine. I think it was called Pennsylvania Farmer at the time, and they had a 6 or 7 page supplement in there about alternative agriculture methods. And one of the stories in there was about this fella up in Pennsylvania who was raising bison. It had a little teeny picture in there, and you could see him and the animals. And I read that and said to my wife about it. I said, that really sounds interesting. And she said, well, if it's interesting, why don't you call the guy and talk to him about it? And I did. And he was interesting, and he invited us to come up. So a couple months later, we went up to visit him. It was up near Scranton, Wilkes-Barre area of Pennsylvania. And he had a herd of about 80 or 90 animals, I think, at the time. And we couldn't see the animals from where his house was. So eventually we got into his truck and rode out. And as we crested one of the ridges on his ranch there, you could see the whole herd out there. And it was just a magnificent sight to me, just glorious animals. And there was no turning back from there. I bought my first 3 heifer calves from him that fall, and that's what started it. At that point, neither my wife or I had ever seen a live bison before. As a matter of fact, I had never had any livestock before, except I think one one project in FFA when I was maybe 12 or 13. I had some pigs for a couple of years, but that was my extent. So we were new to the whole game. Most producers are not sales or marketing people. It's a whole different mindset, and I'm not very good at it myself. But you're forced into learning what you need to know to be able to survive. Bison meat, until these last 5 years, was pretty much an unknown commodity. We've been able to educate the public by going to farmers markets and such and having material there that they can read and look at and have the meat there to educate them with what it is and how healthy it is and why they should buy it. And actually in the last 5 years, on a nationwide basis, the volume of bison meat sales has increased about 10% a year. It's got to the point now where there aren't any excess production animals. You really have to search out to find something you need to add to your base, and it's going really good. I could sell probably 50% more than we're selling now if I had the animals. We do have the animals insured. You can buy insurance for that. We also have the general farm insurance, and there's a general liability that comes along with that. But if you're going to sell anything to the public, you have to have an additional product liability insurance. So we have 3 layers of insurance there. One of the biggest concerns is the forage production. As if we don't have forage production, the animals don't have anything to eat. So we have been trying to purchase insurance that would give us reasonable risk assurance that we would be able to come out at the end of the year and have made some money.